Thursday night football right in front of us. We've got the New York Giants going into San Fran. Teddy is going to take apart that game in great detail. We've got an excellent chart and a whole lot more. Welcome, everybody, to WagerTalk Today, the best daily sports betting show on the planet. Adam Trigger joining us right off the bat. Adam, nice to have you. How are you, my friend?
Doing good, Prez. Got a winner this morning, Korean baseball. Hanwha Eagles get it done. So I'm off to, it's a good way to start the day when you have a game that starts at 5:30 a.m. Eastern and it wins. Conversely, bad way to start the day if it loses, but it won this morning, so I feel great. I've got a big play in the NFL game tonight, and I'm here to give you a couple free NFL plays as well, one of which is a client play. So, everything's going great.
Adam Trigger locked and loaded with a 5% play. Is it a 5% play this evening in the NFL, Adam?
Yes, it is.
A rare 5% play, so that's as big as it
gets.
I
don't usually play Thursdays, Teddy. I think this is my first Thursday game of the year, and I maybe have a couple throughout the year. So I like an angle in tonight's game, and made it a 5%.
Let's talk NFL for Sunday. Tonight's game, obviously 5%. You can get that right now over at WagerTalk.com. But for Sunday, you want to start with this one. The Broncos and the Dolphins. Right now, looking at the WagerTalk live odds screen, I'm seeing Miami minus 6.5, 48.5. We've got 0-2 versus 2-0. And in general, the wise guys like the 0-2 teams in these spots. They're playing for their season with desperation. Do you agree with that wise guy mentality for this game? Or is this a spot where we've seen Miami look pretty good over the first 2 weeks? You just ride the hot team. How do you break it down, Broncos and Dolphins?
Yeah, I am going to go with the 0-2 team here, Teddy. Circling back did a couple shows on Wager Talk earlier this week, said that this was sort of, on my short list to make my card, and I added it. So I figured I'd come and talk about it here, let everyone know that I made this a 4% play and give it out for free. Listen, the Dolphins have looked good, but it's a tough spot for them. They get their big marquee win over the Patriots, and now they got to come to Buffalo next week, up my direction, to play a huge game against the Bills next week. So I think this falls in what like Marco likes to call the sandwich spot a little bit for them. Going home, they're favored. Maybe the Broncos don't get their full undivided attention here. But I think the Broncos are just – listen, if they won both of those games, they could very well be 2-0 right now. I think if they had Jerry Jeudy in the first game, they probably beat the Raiders. And they inexplicably blew a 18-point lead last week. If they're even 1-1 or maybe 2-0, I think they're more like +4 here, not +6.5. And I don't think maybe it gets to a juiced 7, but I don't think it gets there. That's why I just ended up just taking the 6.5 because I wanted to lock in and make sure I didn't get stuck with 6. So as far as the Broncos are concerned in this game, I think they're going to be able to move the ball against Miami. Defensively, Miami is pretty average in my opinion. The Chargers just diced them up week 1. I thought the Patriots moved the ball better than expected last week. We'll talk about the Patriots in a minute. I thought they played a better game than expected. But, it just tells me that the Broncos can hang around in this game. And the final thing with the Broncos, I think them flipping to the underdog role here will actually play in their favor. This team has had so many expectations the last couple of years for a team that really has been just an average football team. And then, of course, they come into this season and they're favored at home in the first 2 games. I actually like them going on the road in the underdog role here. Less expectations, but also I think they're going to be able to move the football. And if they can get up and down the field and score some points, it's going to be difficult for Miami to win and cover. And that's what we're looking at here is the Broncos with a point. So I actually think the Broncos have an outside shot to win this game, Teddy. But if they don't, I think that back door is going to be open. And I just think the points probably play here. I think this is a far more competitive game than the odds makers would indicate with this line.
So my first gut reaction was to look at Denver as well earlier in the week. And then I started reading all this stuff about how the Broncos are trying to simplify their offense and they're changing their schemes. And that was enough to say, yeah, maybe this is in the spot for Denver, because Miami is going to score points. We know that offense is good. The Broncos have to score points with them if they are going to cover this point spread. Are you worried at all about Denver making significant changes to their offensive game plan 2 weeks into the season to simplify things against a team they're going to have to score against?
So, Teddy, I do think Sean Payton and his staff kind of overcoached maybe the first couple games, or I think the coaching for the Broncos can get a lot better. As far as like the offense, I don't think they should do anything to the offense, because the offense has been pretty good. They moved the ball against the Commanders without much issue, and I think the Commanders have a better defense than the Dolphins. The key here is going to be if they show up defensively, because the defense has really struggled, especially last week. But in this case, I actually think they can score with the Dolphins. And the Dolphins, they don't have much of a pass rush. With Jeudy back, see, here's the thing. I think the Broncos probably win that game against the Raiders if Jerry Jeudy's in there. Last week, he didn't have a great game, but the offense was much better. And probably because he was on the field. I think he only had 5 catches. He wasn't like the superstar, but just him being back really opened things up for that offense. So I like the Broncos to have a good offensive week here. And because of that, I think they will hang within the number. Even if this is a scenario where Miami's, scoring points, let's say similar to the way they did against the Chargers, I think the Broncos are going to hang around here. So I like it either way. I think the Broncos cover this number.
Yeah, and guys, don't forget, Waddle might be out. He's still in concussion protocol, and I think that's a big deal here, because with him and Hill in there, you literally need 2 world-class cornerbacks to cover them, and no team has that right now. So add that to the argument, too. Adam Trigger joining us, everyone. You're watching Wager Talk today. If you like what you're hearing, hit that thumbs up button for us, please. Greatly appreciated. Subscribe to our channel as well. We got lots going on this show. Adam's about to take apart the Pats and the Jets. We've got Teddy's What Did Bettors Learn coming up, where he literally just takes a crap on the Chicago Bears. And then we've got Jimmy Adams, who's going to look at the Bills and Commanders, Maryland and Michigan State. Teddy's big game breakdown, which will be the Thursday night fest that's going on tonight, and Carmine Bianco joining us. And Teddy Carm's going to talk Atlanta, Detroit, and also his Circa Millions Week 3 card. Excited to hear what he's got going for that. Yep. And let's turn our attention to the Pats and the Jets. We had, I think Eric Pauly it was yesterday, get on the show. Might have been Mark Zeno. It all blends to me. I'm an old, decrepit man at this point in my life. Could have even been Dan Alexander or Kelly, for all I know. But whatever the case may be, somebody came on this show and said they liked the Pats. My response was, I'm nervous, man. I don't know why I'm nervous, but I'm nervous. I feel like the whole world is coming down on the Jets right now, and that's literally when they step up and win a game. So we got the Pats at -2.5 here. Are you with our previous guest on the Pats or not?
I am. Yeah, no, I like the Patriots in this spot, in this matchup. So I got to backtrack a little bit. I came on Wager Talk programming right after the Aaron Rodgers injury. Kind of defended Zach Wilson, said I thought that, getting a second chance, maybe he's a little bit more mature. Obviously, he was benched and then, kind of has to battle for his spot. Now he's getting a chance to start. That maybe would be okay for the Jets, and he'd be able to sort of, kind of pick up where Rodgers, after 4 plays left off. And then he was just absolutely atrocious last week, 12 for 27, 3 interceptions. And I got to thinking, guys, maybe he's just not that good. Like, for a first rounder, second, Prez, they took him, second overall back in 2021. Do you think he just had us fooled during that COVID year? Everyone's heads was a little cloudy during the COVID year. BYU, he's going up and down the field against these bad teams. Maybe he's just not that good. And where he's really not been good is against the Patriots. In 4 games against the Patriots in his career, all losses, and he's been absolutely dreadful in all 4 of them. So, that tells me that the Patriots, Belichick, the game plan has been really good for Wilson. And I guess what I feel with the Jets now is they've really reverted back to what they were last year, a team that has a really good defense. The defense is going to keep them in games, but that offense is, led by Wilson, is just not going to get it done against better teams. Now, I came on Wager Talk programming and talked about the Patriots this summer. I said that they could potentially be one of the worst teams in the league this year. I thought that they potentially had a bottom 5 team in the preseason, but that Belichick and his staff would get them to a point where they were competitive at some point in the season. I went as far as to say, I hope this team starts poorly. I hope they don't cover so I can come in with them at some point. And I actually think it's going to be sooner than later for the Patriots. They're 0-2. They haven't covered yet, but that 0-2 came against 2 very good football teams, the Eagles and the Dolphins, who are arguably, I don't think anyone's going to argue with the Eagles, but I think you could make a case that the Dolphins are a pretty big contender this year as well. Yeah. So now they play the Jets. With how well they've prepared for the Jets in the past, I think the Patriots come out and win this game. The only reason this wasn't on my client card is, probably having to lay the 2.5 kind of keeps it right on the fringe for me right now. I could add it, but it's right on the fringe in terms of like being like a rated play. But I do think the Patriots end up winning here. Mac Jones has been a lot better. I thought he's looked really strong in his first 2 games. Again, they didn't win. He couldn't get them over the hump, but he still played better. The Patriots are still able to move the ball, and they're running the ball okay as well, which, tells me that they could get a little push in the run game. And if they can move the ball against the Jets and score some points, I think the Jets are going to have a really difficult time winning this game. I also like the Patriots defense. I think their front 4 probably wins the trenches battle with the Jets offensive line. And if that's the case, I just can't see how the Jets get over the hump with Wilson at quarterback. Yeah. So I do like the Patriots laying the points. And it's something I may add from now till Sunday.
Adam Trigger, everybody. And as for Zach Wilson it's not his fault. Like, he's not an NFL quarterback, and he's in the NFL. It's just not his fault. He stinks. And he looks like a guy that has like frosted tips, double diamond earrings in, I don't even like the way he looks. Sorry, Teddy.
I was going to say, I don't know that I told you so, guy, but go back and look at the show that we did after the draft when Zach Wilson got drafted, where I said the Jets are stupid. That said, how come this line isn't 3? That's the one that baffles me. Is I really thought I did an emergency bet alert to think this line was going up, and it hasn't. So there has been some resistance from the sharp money at 3 for the New York Jets. That's a concern for this better. Adam, great stuff, my friend. Good luck with the 5% play this evening. Hope you cash it.
There we go.
Thanks,
Adam
guys.
Trigger,
Have a good day.
everyone. The Energizer Bunny. I think he's still giving analysis out right now, Teddy. 0.73. Anyway, there's a reason we have Adam on every week. He's freaking awesome. Teddy covers. It's time for What Did Bettors Learn?
Oh, we got to talk what we learned. Obviously, Prez, your diatribe about the Chicago Bears yesterday, the fact that we saw Chicago Bears headlines at the top of ESPN when their defense coordinator quit after 2 weeks of the season.
It's like,
I thought the Bears are worthy of what Bettors learned last night. And of course, the clients and I cashed a season win bet on the Bears under their win total last year. They started 3-4. They had a couple of upset wins. They beat the 49ers on opening day. They beat the Patriots on Monday Night Football.
Yep.
But then they started 3-4 and finished 3-14 under cash with room to spare. He had a rookie head coach in Matt Eberflus. He gets an offseason to try to help recreate his roster. They're finally out of salary cap hell. They spent money in the offseason. Justin Fields, now his second season as a starter. He's got weapons. He's got an upgraded offensive line. There was legitimate optimism. And then opening day, you're blown out at home by the Patriots. No Favre, no Rodgers. Instead, it's Jordan Love moving up and down the field. The offense struggles. The whole team lays an egg. All right, week 2's bounce back time. It happens in the NFL all the time. Team lays an egg. They come back the next week and they bounce back, except the Bears didn't bounce back. I almost got a wrong side push in that game, but Fields pick 6 ended that BS. And then everyone thinking the exact same thing after that game. Here's Chicago. worst teams in the NFL, Arizona, Houston, Chicago is probably number 30. Then Tuesday, after the game, after everyone's already downgraded Chicago, Justin Fields essentially throws the offensive coaching staff under the bus. Too much to think about. No, I got to go back to just being me. And I don't blame him. The career's on the line for this young man. You know, a good season is worth $100 million for him, and a bad season is he's a career backup. I don't blame him for being a little bit frustrated. So you have Justin Fields throwing the offensive coaching staff under the bus. And then Wednesday, the defense coordinator quits, Alan Williams. So what do we do with a team like this right now? You know, Matt Eberflus is now going to be taking over the defensive play calling. He was defensive play caller last week. I'll give him credit for the red zone. But this is a train wreck team by week 3. They're 0-2 straight up, 0-2 ATS. What do we do with them? First, you don't try to find value on Chicago right now.
Well
trying
said.
to bet on this team. Not early in the season anyway. Later in the season, maybe, but not right now. And everybody sees it. This team's already devalued. They have ugly stats. They're ranked number 31. They're minus 1.5 yards per friggin' play through the first two. The stats are ugly. But you ask me right now, can you make money fading this team moving forward? My gut reaction's not much. It's a fade or pass for the Bears. True. Probably pass. I might bet against them this week. I think it might be a nice spot for KC to dig out of their early season slump. But when we're looking for teams that will want to fade week in, week out, we got to dig a little deeper. Find a team the markets aren't pricing correctly. Right now, they're pricing Chicago correctly. I still wouldn't be surprised if the Chiefs win this game by more than 2 touchdowns on Sunday. It's a good team for Kansas City to get healthy against. Lawrence?
Yeah, Teddy, look, 27-3, 35-10. I'd be surprised if Chicago gets a touchdown this week. And just to add really quickly, one of our listeners writes that Chicago, it's time for Chicago's management to look for a new QB. Well, firstly, that was time a long time ago. And secondly, it's time for Chicago's upper management to look for new management. That's where it all starts. It's not about Justin Fields. Name their world-class wide receiver, their world-class running back, their world-class edge rusher, their world-class safety, their world-class nothing. This is a piss-poor management group, and it doesn't take a rocket scientist to know don't draft Ohio State quarterbacks. This has been proven over and over and over and over again. Unless your name is Joe Burrow and you transferred to LSU, there has not been one single Ohio State quarterback that has ever had any substantive, worthwhile career in the NFL, at least in my recollection. I'm sure it happened in the 60s or the 70s. I don't remember that. But I do know this. If you have a son and he wants to be a quarterback in the NFL, do not send him to Ohio State. That is where I stand. Teddy Covers, I got both the side and total tonight for my clients. I also have some prop bets coming. They aren't in yet. Johnny, I can't discuss that on air. Anyway, oh my God. Okay, Teddy, let's bring in our next guest. Jimmy Adams! How are you, my friend? What's going on?
Doing great. Off of 5-0 college football weekend in action with a big bet tonight. Yeah, so, staying real busy, hoping to keep cashing.
Yep. Jimmy, NFL, you had a great 3-1 week 1. Week 2, if I recall, was a losing week. Is that correct?
It was. We're treading water, about even in the NFL. Number 1 ranked college football season to date. So we flipped the script a little bit, see if we can keep that rolling. But we'll get the NFL back on track, no doubt. Starting tonight.
Yeah, and you know what, Jimmy? Listen, I mentioned that because you are really one of the best NFL handicappers at the site, one of the best NFL handicappers I know. You had a massive season last year, and nobody is winning 17 weeks in a row. Really might be a great time to jump on the Jimmy Adams board for this week in NFL. Jimmy, let's start with NFL. We've got the Buffalo Bills playing the Washington Commodores. Should be easy like Sunday morning for Buffalo, no?
I agree, Prez.
Not
So
bad,
everyone well
like
aware.
medium.
Yeah, so everyone's well aware that Josh Allen played a huge part in the Week 1 loss to the Jets, right? He took the blame. There were other issues too, but it was mainly Allen. He took the blame. He responded very well in a 38-10 dismantling of the Raiders. 3 TDs, no interceptions, which is what I'm looking for. I don't want him turning the ball over. The Bills are going to go as Josh Allen goes. This is a Super Bowl caliber team on paper. As long as he doesn't make those critical mistakes, Buffalo's going to be just fine. What I really want to focus on, though, is the 2-0 Commanders team, right? So Washington had a comeback victory over a Cardinals team in Week 1 that had their season win total 4.5. Then they have a massive comeback against a Denver squad that's been one of the league's biggest underachievers for over a year. Sean Payton's come in. Not much has changed, at least in the early going. This is the most fraudulent 2-0 team in the NFL. They've given up 10 sacks through 2 games, allowed 35 points to the Broncos. Do we really think they're going to be able to stop this Buffalo offense? Meanwhile, the Bills have allowed 32 total points, 6 of which came on special teams in overtime in that, ridiculous play to New York. So, look, at a touchdown or less, Buffalo absolutely worth a play here. What do you think, Teddy?
So, no, I'm looking the other side of this game. I haven't bet it yet, but at 7 I will. And this is the concern that I have. You'd say the Bills, everything's fine with the Bills. They fixed everything last week. And I watched that game like a hawk last week. I do not think Buffalo is fixed. And the biggest concern for this matchup, in my mind, offensive line versus defensive line. Washington's defensive line is a scary unit. They blow up the line of scrimmage. Buffalo's offensive line, there are issues. Allen's been under pressure consistently. The running game hasn't been there consistently. Do you think that Buffalo's going to be able to control the line of scrimmage enough to win this game by more than a TD? Because that's the biggest concern I have with the Bills side in this one.
Yeah, enough to win it I do with. I'm a big believer in Josh Allen. I think I like him more than most. And look, you can say what you want about Washington's front 7. It's great. They just gave up 33 points to the Broncos. How much, did that team score last year? Like, they couldn't get over 17 points. 20 to Arizona with a quarterback. You talk about QBs that aren't NFL quarterbacks. So, their front 7's great. Buffalo's going to put up a ton of points. And, they can control the line of scrimmage, but I think Josh Allen gets it done here. We'll see. It's kind of a square play. It's one of those square plays, but I agree with it.
Jimbo, I'm not with you. I'm like Teddy. I think the front 7 of Washington is like a brick house, and they're going to sail on down the road. I can continue with my puns. They all have ladies. They are still a football team, and the field might be slippery when wet. Okay, enough with the Commodore songs. Jimmy, man, this Washington team is underrated, period. That is too many points. Sam Howell is for real. He will be talking about when he watched Zach Wilson and Justin Fields play pickleball, because that guy is going to have a career. So we are not on the same page, but that's okay. Maryland, Michigan State, you've got a total for us. 52.5, up or down?
Going up. So I came on this show and gave out Washington last week, one of our never in doubt winners, right? And Michigan State, they're pretty much unbackable with everything going on. You've lost all closing line value with the side, as this number has gotten steamed through the way off the opener and through the key number at 7. However, I do think there is a play worth making on the over. Maryland's offense has been great, right? Scoring at least 38 points in every game, including hanging 32 on Virginia last Friday in a game we were also on. Talia Tagovailoa leads a strong Terps offense that has excelled against weaker competition. This is what Maryland does. They beat up on they win games they're supposed to win, and then they lose to the Ohio States and the Michigans and that sort of thing. Every game an audition for Tagovailoa for the NFL. We know that. It's, so Maryland and Michigan State, the D was just trashed. The Michigan State defense was just trashed by Washington, right? That being said, the Terps have been getting out some very slow starts. They fell behind 14-0 to Virginia. The week prior, they did the same thing against Charlotte. So you have a Michigan State team that was just embarrassed by one of the best teams in the country, for sure. I think we see some pride and some fight out of Sparty with everything going on. I think they score some points on Maryland. This one goes up and over the total.
So Sparty's offense faced the first real defense that they've seen this season last week, and it wasn't pretty. 35-0 at halftime. Total yards, I think they got, they ended up in the 200s, but when the game was still competitive, it was basically 3 and out, 3 and out, 3 and out, 3 and out, 3 and out. Can this team move the football against anyone? Even a defense that's not as good as Washington's like Maryland's? Do we trust Michigan State to actually put points on the board? Because if we're going over the total, we're going to need some points on the board from the Spartans.
Yeah, no, so I want 2 to 3 scores out of Michigan State, and I think that playing Washington actually helps them here. It's like when you were a freshman in high school and you went and played with the varsity, then you came back down and practiced with your squad, and the game was a little slower, right? They hang 45 on Richmond last week. Then they play Washington, who's got a tremendous defense. There's no indication that Maryland is on any sort of level that Washington's on. Give me 3 scores at home with some pride. Maryland will take care of the rest. This one goes over.
Jimmy Adams joining us, everyone. And one of our listeners wrote, I forgot All Night Long, Roger Long. Roger, All Night Long is by Lionel Richie. I know he was the writer and main guy in the Commodores, but that ain't the Commodores. That's Lionel Richie. So, hey, you're truly wrong. More puns from the Prez. Jimmy, what do you got to promote? Teddy's dying here. He's dying. He wants this over so bad.
Yeah, I'll make it quick then. Big bet in the NFL tonight. Number 1 college football handicapper at WagerTalk. 5-0 last week. Big bet on Saturday. Hint, great time for a 3-day all-access pass. Good luck, everyone, with your bets. Thank you.
Outstanding stuff, Jimmy Adams, everyone. Teddy covers, we got a big game tonight, Thursday night, New York Giants. Which team is going to show up? The one who played the first 6 quarters, or the team that played the greatest second half, top 10 maybe in history? Which San Fran team is going to show up? The one that shut Pittsburgh down completely, only for us to find out Pittsburgh doesn't have an offense? Or the one that let the Rams move up and down the field on them? I think this is a fascinating game. Break it down for us.
Sure. I think it's a fascinating game, too, which is why we're using it for today's big game breakdown. Looking at the WagerTalk live odds screen. San Fran, let's call it minus 10.5. Split total right now. There are 44s, there are 43.5s in the market. Here's the concept, the basic concept that we're looking at, that I'm looking at for this game. And it's this. 2 games into the season, these 2 teams already have misleading statistical profiles. The Giants played 6 quarters of the worst football you're ever going to see. If you didn't watch the game, you downgraded their power rating again last week after barely beating the number 32 team in the NFL by a late field goal. But if you watched a team save their season, dig deep, execute. Arizona wanted that game. They were trying. The Giants just played better. This team was awful for 6 full quarters. And the stats show that. But how do we grade them moving forward? Not necessarily quite so awful. Brian DeBall after the game, quote, I think we have some mentally tough players on our team and coaches. It's not always easy to be mentally tough when you're down 60-0 after a game and a half. Lots of positive quotes following the ball game. San Fran, on the other hand, has looked like the best team in the NFL, 2-0. They're playing great, picking up right where they left off last year, where they've been the last 3 or 4 years. But, as Lawrence mentioned when he introduced the game, maybe the Rams and the Steelers ain't all that. And Brock Purdy did throw a touchdown pass last week. First time in his career, he had a power rating below 95 in his 7 career start. Defense got picked apart last week by the Rams. No shortage of explosive plays allowed in that contest. These are concerns for a double-digit favorite. Angles on Thursday night, Well, we got a couple of them. First, I like to bet against rookie coaches. Hard to get a team ready, but the Giants stayed out west, and Dable isn't a rookie coach. But we also have a chart from Ralph that I want to put up now. And in my mind, that chart is very meaningful. Double-digit home favorites on Thursday Night Football since 2006. 17-0 straight up, 13-4 against the spread. That's meaningful, all right? NFL quartile 1. My strategies try to bet on the best teams and against the worst ones. San Fran clearly one of the best. So, yeah, I lean towards the Giants, but this game is here, an opinion, not a client play, in part because of Ralph's chart and in part because of the thought process that quartile 1, we want to be betting on teams like San Fran, not fading them. That said, I still think it's too many points, in my mind, a single-digit game. There's your big game breakdown. Back to you, Mr. Prez.
Teddy, so that chart, I think it was 13-4 for the home team in a double-digit spot, 17-game sample size. You know, when I look at this stuff and look, you know, Dwayne Bryant does a video on our channel where he goes through the Killer Sports database. Ralph Michaels comes on every Friday with these great charts, and there's always data. We can find data on the other side of the stuff too. But for me, I always want to know why. Why 17-game sample size is too small. But let's assume it's a 1,700 game sample size. I always want to know why. Why is it that 13 out of 17 times the favorite covered a double-digit spread at home? And unless I can come up with a logical reason, I just don't use those trends.
I think there's a very logical reason. When you're talking about less time to prepare and a double-digit favorite, there's a class difference between the two teams. For the lesser of the two teams to compete, more preparation time is certainly helpful, and less travel time is certainly helpful.
Good point.
We're
there
talking
you
about
go.
Home favorites on Thursday night. So the team that gets outclassed gets smacked around in these games. It's been, again, it's not a lot of instances. And that's definitely worth noting. If you're looking for a flaw in the chart, there hasn't been a case like this since 2019. So it's not anything that's, every week or we see this every year. There's been 17 opportunities this century. Or since 2005, I think it is. But,
close enough.
There's not like there's a ton of these opportunities, and there hasn't been any in recent years based on Ralph's numbers. So it's not an auto bet on, but I wouldn't dismiss the chart. I think it's there absolutely for a reason. Those results aren't random in this bettor's opinion. And that's enough to take a lean toward the Giants for me, and then we'll leave it on the sideline.
Teddy, I said in the NFL presidential address, part 2 went up late last night. By the way, guys, thanks for all the wonderful comments on part 1. Close to 6,000 of you guys have watched that video, and I really appreciate it. Check out part 2. But Teddy, I said in part 1 of the NFL presidential address that I don't think, now look, Giants still have Dallas on board twice, but I don't think we're going to see a plus 10.5 for this Giants team again for a while. I don't want to define a while, but I think it could be a fair amount of time. This year, next year, what are your thoughts on that? 10.5 plus 10.5 for the Giants. You think we're going to see that line again for the next little while?
They're at Dallas in November. There's a possibility there. They're at Philly on Christmas Day. If the Giants' season goes south, those will be double-digit favorite games.
Yes, but I'm going to go out on a limb right now and say they will not be. What did you just you just sent me a Slack, dude. Let's read it on air. BS question from yesterday. Oh, you want to go through the BS question from yesterday? Do you remember it? Oh, yes, I remember it. BS question from yesterday. Do we have the question to go on the screen, Daniel's son? That's okay. I remember the question. It was, what are the key numbers in betting NFL totals? And it is a great question because we always talk about key numbers when betting sides. Teddy, what are the key numbers when betting totals?
I'm going to start by talking about the key numbers when betting on sides. and explain the difference between key numbers in sides and key numbers in totals, and why we worry more about key numbers in sides than we do for totals. In the NFL, between the year 2000 and this season, 15% of games get decided by 3 points. 9% of games get decided by 7 points. 6% of games get decided by 6 points. 5.5% of games get decided by 10 points. 5% of games get decided by 4 or 14 points. 4% of games get decided by 1 or 2 points. All of those percentages are higher than the highest percentage of any, when we're talking about totals, of any margin. Yes, you have key numbers in terms of 37 and 38. You have key numbers 40 and 41. You have key numbers in the 44, 45 range. But none of them, and again, there are key numbers in the 51 range. That gets about 5.5. The 44 gets about 5.5. The 40 gets about 5% of games land on 40. But none of these are anywhere near in terms of the commonality that we see games landing on 3 and 7 in the NFL. So there are the key numbers. I just mentioned them. But they're not as important as the key numbers on sides. Plain and simple, the math shows it. Lawrence?
Teddy, I mean, listen, I got very little to add to that. I mean, that was mathematically beautiful. Can you please tweet that out to your customer base? Tag me on that tweet, because
I can't tweet that out. It's 2 giant charts that I plagiarized from someplace else. No. I'm not. I can't do it. Ralph's a good tweeter.
You can't plagiarize math, bro. Math is math. 4% of the games end on this number. You can't tweet it out? Okay. Sorry, guys. Teddy can't tweet that out. I do want to say one quick thing about key numbers and totals, because I am a totals bettor. I bet way more totals than sides. I want a pathway to a tie. So 48, 24, 24, 40, 20, 20, 42, 21, 21. I know that those numbers, like Teddy mentioned, the games don't land on those numbers a lot, but that's because at 21, 21, the game doesn't end. At 24, 24, 20, 20, the game doesn't end. I want a pathway to a tie. And it's crucial, because you look at that New England game this past weekend on the over with Miami. The only way that game was going over was a pathway to the tie. And that path was there. It didn't happen, but just something to take into account. Carmine Bianco joining us, everyone. Carm, the pleasure is mine. How are you, my friend?
I'm doing well. I like going last, especially when you guys have hard outs, so I can be quicker with my analysis.
Well, we don't have a hard out. Do we have oh, wait, it's Thursday. Maybe we do, right, Teddy? Oh, Carm, you're going to have to be quick on your analysis. Okay. Atlanta, Detroit. Huge money coming in on Atlanta throughout the week. Don't know if it's going to be bet back the other way, but my God, did this line move. Why, where, how? What are you doing in this game?
Yeah, I love talking about the dirty ones, and this is one, I think, when it opened up on the 12th, this number was at 6. It's down to 3. I think the value's all gone on Atlanta, that it's now a good buy-on spot on Detroit. I get it. There's a lot of variables in this game, which I'll get to. Obviously, you look at the injuries. David Montgomery didn't practice yesterday. He said he probably needed a couple of weeks, but then you have Campbell, who says he's day-to-day. Campbell's going to do that. He's not going to tell you who's missing until game day, so you can build a plan around it. As well, too, their right guard. I'm not even going to try and pronounce his first name, but Vaitai. He's not playing with a knee injury, so you start to wonder about the injuries on Detroit. But I think they'll be fine. You look at the Falcons, and 2 wins. I'm happy about that because I have the season win total with them. But those were under optimal conditions at home. I get it. Desmond Ridder has been very good. I think Robinson's been great in his first 2 games, but it's a small sample size. You look at Ritter; he started the last 4 games of last season, so 6 games that he has started, but he's lost both road games or at home. Optimal conditions in Detroit, in a dome stadium where the fans are making noise. Let's see how he manages that clock there. Now you look at it and you talk about Robinson and the fact that he's had a couple of good rushing games, and Detroit was one of the worst, if not the worst, rushing defense last year. But they've been good in their first couple of games of this season. 90 yards rushing allowed to KC. Mahomes got 45 of those. And then against Seattle last week, Kenneth Walker, the third, only averaged 2.5 yards per rush on 43 total rushing yards. So they've done a good job thus far. They're going to have to be just as good. And as far as Atlanta's defense, you look at it, only 3 sacks registered so far. Haven't gotten a lot of pressure on the quarterback, and even with that right guard out, you look at it. If Montgomery's not in, it's going to be Jahmyr Gibbs. He's a good pass catching running back, which is what you might need. You might need to go to get rid of that ball quickly. 9 targets last week when he came in. He caught 7 for, I think it was 39 yards against Seattle. So, and then I think it's an upgrade. Listen, right now, Goff is better than Ritter, and as far as experience goes, Ritter and Jordan Love. So those 2 are going to be very good quarterbacks moving forward. But Goff at home manages this game, and I think the buy low price of 3 is a good bet to take right now.
Teddy, are we doing a follow-up or not? Teddy and I are in Slack right now. I'm like, are you doing a follow-up? He's like, I'm debating. I'm like, well, I got something I want to say. I'll then throw to you. He's like, okay, a quick follow-up. I'm like, fine, go. He's like, KK. Where are we at in this conversation?
I'm not sure. Do you have something you want to add? Because I do have a follow-up, but I know there's something you're excited about.
So we'll go to your follow-up in a sec because I have something important to add, and we always try to help and teach, educate, and inform our bettors. One of our listeners, Gooseballs, who is not kind to the Prez. He makes negative comments about the Prez regularly, but that's okay. He's got balls from a goose. I win. He loses. But whatever the case may be, he wrote, the only total numbers I don't worry about is 46. Everything else I try to get every hook I can. Yeah, well, you should always try to get every hook you can. But I just want to make mention, there is never a good EV time to buy a hook on a total. Ever. On any number across the board. Teddy went down. He said there's no, what, Teddy, the 4% is probably the largest number that it lands on a regular basis. 5% yes. Tops. Well, if it's good, if you only have a 4.5%, 5% chance of it landing on a number and you're paying 10% to buy a hook, goosey, baby. Don't do it. Nobody ever buy a 0.5 point on a total. Sorry about that, Teddy. All you.
Yeah, 44 and 51 are the only 2 that have gotten more than 5% of games landing on those 2 numbers. 40, just shy of 5% in recent seasons. Follow up for Carmine talking about the Lions and the Falcons. You kind of poo-pooed that Lions injury report. All the money on Atlanta is all the Lions injury report. Lions injury report is ugly. Yeah. Multiple. I got both starting tackles questionable. I've got basically their entire secondary may not play. Amon-Ra St. Brown is real iffy. How worried are you about how banged up Detroit is right now?
St. Brown's he'll play. They say he's a game time decision. I think he practices today. The Wednesday practices never really worry me, Teddy, because you get whether they're veterans or whether some of their stars. That's usually like a maintenance day. They get that day off. What you want to see is whether they're there Thursdays or Fridays. And if they still haven't practiced on Friday, then you've got to worry and find a way of bailing out. But I think it's a lot easier to bail out on a 3 than it is a 3.5, because the line drops to 3 and you're never going to get that plus 3.5 the other way out. And like we talked about, and I talked about the variables, and it's the line is coming down. I did say because of the injuries. Montgomery, he's not going to play. It's going to be Jahmyr Gibbs. That's my best guess. It's going to be Jahmyr Gibbs in there. I think Campbell is.
I don't worry about
he's
running
just
backs.
not
I worry about
giving
their
the-
secondary and their offensive line, Carm. You know, if they've got three of the 4 starters in the secondary and half the offensive line is banged up. That's my biggest concern.
Well, I mean,
Yeah,
Teddy.
But
Teddy.
we haven't seen the Falcons get any pressure whatsoever on the 2 quarterbacks thus far. They got Bryce Young and they got Jordan Love, 3 sacks in those 3 games, and only I think in both games combined, I think only 5 tackles for losses by that defensive line right now as far as getting into the backfield. So I'm not really worried about. Well, I am worried. I still think it's a great price to get, and I love the fact that if Goff, who's a proven veteran and at home, if he can get that ball to his tight ends and to his running back to alleviate some of that pressure on his offensive line, I think it bodes well for them in that game.
Carm, we are basically up against it. You want to talk about your 5 Circa picks. Teddy is not allowed to ask a follow-up. You have 1 minute. Go.
All right, so I'll make this easy. I'll go through the 5 that are my first 5. Minnesota, laying a point. I think the Chargers have way too many issues right now. I think Minnesota is the play here amongst these 0-2 teams. Cleveland, -3. I think the overreaction to the last game is another buy low price. Detroit that I just talked about. Tampa +5. I like their defense at home. I get it's the Eagles, but Tampa getting points at home. I like this one. And then Denver +6.5. I'm a Bills fan, but listen, all is not right with the Buffalo Bills, despite what they're putting out there for everyone in social media. There's problems with this team. I'm going to take the +6.5. Sorry, that's with Washington +6.5. And then Denver is a 6th game, getting the 6.5 against Miami. So I've got 6 games. I'll likely go with Denver and not Washington as my 5. So you either have Mini, Cleveland, Detroit, Tampa, and Denver.
Carm, I love this segment. I think you need to come on here Thursday. We'll give you a little bit more breathing room, and you'll give out your 5 Circa picks. You did so well last year. I think it's really good info. And next Thursday, you'll come on. You'll do it again. No need to have the first game. We'll just take apart your Circa picks. Teddy covers. Oh, wait, we got a promo for Carm. And Carm, I wanted to talk about your hockey, but I guess we'll do that next week. Instead, we're talking about soccer. So give it out and let's get out of here.
Okay, so quick one. 5% play in the NFL. It's a teaser, 21-1. My last 22 teaser plays at WagerTalk. 5% play up for Sunday. And then soccer's on a roll right now. Stoppage 50. Stoppage 50 will get you $50 off the $199 30-day soccer all access. And that's it, boys.
There we go. That's the show. Carmine Bianco, Jimmy Adams, Adam Trigger, Teddy Covers. Take us home.
Sure. That's going to wrap it for the Thursday edition of Wager Talk Today. We'll do it again tomorrow. Same time, same channel, right here on Wager Talk TV. Between now and then, you guys know what to do. Enjoy the games, and best of luck with all your wagers.